Hello guys, today we are going to discuss on General Musharraf era. General Musharraf era was started on 12th of October 1999 through a military coup and it lasted till 2008. Musharraf had taken over on 12th October and it was considered as the darkest day for the democracy of Pakistan since Musharraf took the charge of country by enforcing martial law and ruled out democracy. The imposition of martial law is treason and violation of Article 6 of the 1973 Constitution of Pakistan. This was all due to the hide and seek between that time's government and army. Nawaz Sharif wanted to remove General Musharraf from the post of Chief of Army Staff, and he tried to do this on that day. When Musharraf came to know he was on a foreign trip, he was in Colombo in Sri Lanka, and when he came to know about that, he was in Sri Lanka on an official tour. Acting immediately, General Musharraf dashed for the Karachi-bound Pakistan International Airline PK-80A5 flight came from Colombo, and his plane was not allowed to land at the airport, and his plane circling the Karachi airport almost 200 minutes, and it was said that the plane was in facing shortage of fuel, and General Musharraf has since said that the plane had only 7 minutes of fuel remaining. At almost 11:30, the news came that Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif had been dismissed and the martial law has been imposed and the National Assembly and Senate had been dissolved. However, the order that the Musharraf, after assuming the power, had issued did not use the word martial law. He assumed the office of chief executive, which was a peculiar and for the first time in the constitutional and political history of Pakistan, the office of the chief executive was created. And the most important event in this era is the September 11. It's a well-known event. I think there will be hardly any person in the world who is not aware about the 9/11. On 11 September 2001, with the collapse of the World Trade Center, started what the US called the war against terrorism. US President at that time, George Bush, termed it an act of terrorism and decided to take strong action against the people who had carried out the attack. It was the Taliban and the Saudi millennia-returned militant Osama bin Laden who were eventually held responsible for it. And when General Pervez Musharraf was asked for his collaboration in war against terrorism, he readily accepted that call, since it was good to continue his power as well, and perhaps that was the best decision at that time. And General Musharraf made effort to persuade the Afghans' political and religious leadership to support an alliance with the United States, but I'm sorry, first General Pervez Musharraf tried his best to persuade the political and religious leadership of Afghanistan to hand over Osama bin Laden to USA, but when he was failed, he decided to make coalition with the United States, and for that he tried to persuade the Pakistani political and religious leadership. The liberal-minded politicians agreed to fully back the government, while the leaders of some hardline Islamic parties were not happy. The next event that is the Referendum 2002. This was again a peculiar event, and the referendum took place on 30th April 2002, and with no competition. Musharraf was the only candidate for the referendum, and the question was also a very unique question. It was asked that for the survival of the local government system, establishment of democracy, continuity of reforms, and to end to sectarianism and extremism, and to fulfill the vision of Qaid-e-Azam, would you like to elect General Pervez Musharraf as President of Pakistan for 5 years? So many critics say that the question itself was a biased, because asking the Pakistanis that whether you favor the fulfillment of the vision of Qaid-e-Azam, The answer from most of the Pakistanis came yes, because of the emotional grounds that being the founder of Pakistan, nobody in Pakistan could even imagine to go against his views. And anyhow, the results were obviously in favor of Qaid-e-Azam, mostly in favor of General Pervez Musharraf, since most of the people voted in, or the most of the people said yes to the question. However, there are allegations that riggings were also, the government had also rigged that referendum. And the next event is the general elections 2002. After 3 years of military rule, Pakistan again headed towards democracy on October 10, 2002, when more than 70 parties participated, and both small and big parties contested the 8th national parliamentary elections. And again, this was again a unique that a military dictatorship or a military dictator had arranged a general election on party basis. If you will see the previous military dictator like General Ziaul Haq, he had also held general elections in 1985, but those elections were non-party based. And this time, General Pervez Musharraf had arranged elections which were party based. And these elections were different from the previous ones due to the number of legislations passed by the government. For example, according to the People's Representation of People Act 2002, the convicted people were barred from taking part in elections, and several other politicians were unable to contest the elections as they did not have a bachelor degree, which was mandatory qualification in the elections. This was the only, or this was one of the good things that was introduced through People's Representation Act of 2002, when it was made mandatory qualification, that was the minimum graduation was required to participate in the general elections for the National Assembly. And again, the best thing that we can see in these elections was that since 1977, minority communities, and that include Christians, Hindus, and Parsis, were allowed to contest and voted for the general seats in the national and provincial assemblies. So these were the two good things that were included in the representation of the People's Act 2002, that minimum qualification was set for MPs, and the minorities were also allowed to contest and voted for the general seats in the national and provincial assemblies. However, one thing that was really confusing was that the convicted people were barred from taking part in elections, and critics say that this was inserted to crush the opposition. And what they did is that they put or they filed cases against the opposition leaders, and they said that since you are convicted and now you are not allowed to participate in elections. So, but the remaining two, setting a minimum qualification and allowing the minorities to participate on general seats, was really a good thing in that date. And the third, which is a neutral and it's good, was that the voting age was lowered from 21 years to 18 years. Previously, Pakistani who had attained the age of 21 was allowed to vote, but that was reduced to 18 years. After the general elections of 2002, which was the after the general elections 2002, Mir Zafarullah Khan Jamali became the 13th Prime Minister of Pakistan, and he was elected as the Prime Minister of Pakistan on 21st November 2001. I'm really sorry, guys. It's written 200 here. You can see there. That's a typing mistake. It's actually 2001. And Zafarullah Khan Jamali remained on premiership from 2002. I'm really sorry, guys. From 21st November 2002 to 2004, and in 2004 he was removed from premiership, and first on his place Chaudhry Shujaat Hussain assumed as the caretaker prime minister, and later on Shaukat Aziz, who was the then finance minister, he contested elections and assumed a seat in National Assembly and became the 14th regular prime minister of Pakistan. Shaukat Aziz assumed the office of premiership in July 2004, and Pakistan's Prime Minister chose Shaukat Aziz survived a suicide attack aimed at him by Al-Qaeda militants. Aziz would go on to win by two by-elections in August, paving the way to his assumption of the role of Prime Minister. Aziz had been Musharraf's Minister of Finance, and his assumption of the role of Prime Minister was aimed at attempting to focus energy crisis of Pakistan and Pakistan's to help Pakistan to come out from the troubled economy. Since he was a well-known economist, the major achievements of Musharraf include that he made 9 world-class engineering universities. The cost of these universities, which was over 96.5 billion rupees. In 1999 to 2000, there were 31 public universities. In 2005 to 6, there were 49 public universities. Air University was established in 2002. Institute of Space and Technology (IST) was established in 2002. Similar on the same lines, University of Science and Technology Bannu, it was established in 2005. University of Hazara was founded in 2002, and University of Gujarat was established in 2004. And the Virtual University of Pakistan, Lahore, it was also established in 2002. So in this way, the number of universities were increased in Pakistan, and the literacy rate in Pakistan was also increased in this period. It was 45% in 2002, which was increased to 53% in 2005. And it was said that 4% of GDP will be spent on education sector in Pakistan, and total number of educational institutes were also increased, and there were more than 5,000 Pakistanis doing PhD in foreign countries on scholarships in Musharraf era. If you will see, in 1999, that number was 300, and during Musharraf era, almost 300 Pakistanis received a PhD degree every year, which was just 20 in 1999. So from education point of view, this dictatorship was a good period. And the other major achievement of Musharraf were he did a wonderful job in industrial development, especially the banking sector developed very much, and the savings were also increased. According to the IMF report, Pakistan was third in the ranking in the banking profitability, behind Colombia and Venezuela, while India was on 36th number, and amazingly China was on the 40th position at that time. And the year 2007 was not good for Musharraf, since the year 2007 brought a huge political crisis of Pakistan. And that crisis was rooted in President Pervez Musharraf's initial idea of stepping down in 2007 and his following plans to stand in the long proposed 2007 elections. And the political crisis rapidly built. Perhaps the most serious stirring incident came on 9 March 2007 when Musharraf suspended Iftikhar Chaudhry, the then Chief Justice of Pakistani Supreme Court, who had largely been expected to rule that he would be illegal for Musharraf to stand in the upcoming elections. And the death of Benazir Bhutto is again a very devastating event of this era. You know that Benazir was shot dead on 27th of December 2007 while he was coming out after addressing a public rally in Rawalpindi. This create very bad impacts on Pakistani economy. For example, KFC 100 index Karachi was lowered or fall by 4.7%. Pakistani rupee against the US dollar fell to its lowest since October 2001, and the stock exchange has a history of recovering after political unrest. The Pakistan Railway was suffered because over 149 bogies, 63 railway stations, and 29 locomotives were damaged within 2 days by the protesters. And in the first 4 days after the death of assassination, Karachi suffered losses of $1 billion US. Thank you for joining. Take care. Goodbye.